All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Thursday, October 31st. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. We got a 4-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'll give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player props that we like in the games as well. But as always, guys, all of my final plays, if you do want to fade me, all of my final plays will be listed for free in the pinned comment. In terms of last night, we ended up going 3-3. Not going to cry about it. Nothing to write home about. We were on an absolute run. Before last night, we were 9-1 in our last 10 plays. Back down to earth, which is expected here with a 3-3 night last night. Knicks money line and Mikal Bridges, definitely two of our plays that we loved yesterday. Those both cashed. And Anthony Simons being somewhat of a late ad. I know I talked about it in the video, but I went back and forth, and I'm damn glad I did because at least that combated a few of those other losses. The worst one probably, actually all three of those, not all that great, right? D'Angelo Russell didn't look good from deep. The Sixers got beat outright, and then Seth Curry here over 1.5 3-pointers made. Where do you have like 1 of 2? I thought that he was going to dominate the perimeter. So a couple, or I should say a few bad looks, but a few really good ones as well. So like I said, nothing to cry about, nothing to write home about either. On the good news side of things, the ride of the day. Parlay Guru coming in clutch yet again. This one was a sweat. Cade Cunningham under 7.5 assists. Cade finished with 7 assists. The Parlay Guru now cashes 3 days in a row. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it is simple. Just use the hashtag ride of the day in the comments. Give me your favorite play. I jump on board with one person's pick each and every day, and you get a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you win, like Parlay Guru has for 3 days in a row, we continue to ride with your picks until the wheels fall off and until you ultimately lose. But make sure to get those hashtag ride of the days in the comments. At least, Parlay Guru had a nice little day yesterday. We went 3-3. Yeah, at least clutches up there. But let's go ahead and dive into this slate, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. I got 100,000 subscribers in the crosshair. It's really, really cool to see that number continuously go up. So appreciate the heck out of everyone that is new. That's an OG. Maybe if you're just watching for a few months or so, I appreciate each and everyone, even the guppies out there. Appreciate you guys tuning in. But let's go ahead and dive into game number 1 here. We're looking at the Grizz taking on Milwaukee. Right now, it's 6.5 points. We have 6.5 on the graphic. I've seen some 6s out there. The total at 226.5. Milwaukee not exactly off to the hottest start. 1-3 so far this year. 1-3 against the spread as well. They're 1-2 on the road. They are on the road here. Memphis 2-3 this season. They are on a back-to-back. They lost to Brooklyn last night. And in terms of where I'd go with the spread here, we obviously want to keep an eye on the injury report. Ja Morant's not listed on it, which is great, but Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart are both on the injury report here. Giannis Antetokounmpo also listed as a game-time decision, so definitely some injuries to watch, but the Bucks haven't played in a few days, so I expect Giannis to play. Overall, in terms of a spread pick, I do think I lean Grizzlies plus the 6.5 points. Do I think that they're the better team? No. Do I think that they're going to win this game? No. But they are at home. They are getting 6.5 points. And what I will say is the last time Memphis was on a back-to-back, which was when they lost to Houston, they lost by 20-something points, right? Then they went out and beat the Orlando Magic outright as an underdog. So this Memphis team, they're young, they can run. I don't necessarily think that it's all that crazy to assume that they can still perform in a back-to-back against a Bucks team that has been underperforming. Now, with that being said, the Bucks are well rested. They are looking to kind of get some momentum going. There are a couple matchup spots like from the perimeter and even at the hoop. I think that they could have some advantages here. But overall, I think that this is a better defensive team on the Memphis side of things. They should win the assist-to-turnover ratio. They should win the rebounding battle. Maybe, just maybe, the points in the paint, like I said, is where the Bucks dominate. But overall, I think I see enough here to like the Grizzlies plus the 6.5 points. When it comes to a total 226.5, I really don't mind the under in this situation. Excuse me, the over. Completely opposite. The over in this situation. Memphis hit the over in their first back-to-back they had this season, and this is a Milwaukee team, 6th fastest team so far in terms of pace through these, small sample size. Now, their defense has been terrible. That's why they've been playing so fast and allowing a lot of points and points per possession and whatnot. Their scoring has kind of slowed down. They played Brooklyn, only dropped 102 on them, played Boston, only 108, so we're hoping for the Bucks to kind of pick things up a little bit here. I do think that Memphis is a tough defending team, but like I said, there should be some easy buckets for the Bucks. Easy buckets for the Bucks down in the paint today. So I'm going to lean towards the over 226.5. Both of those I do like, and both have a chance of being a final play. Now, in terms of player props here, I like Gary Trent Jr. over 1.5 3-pointers made. This is a Memphis team that I would say is I guess, struggles in terms of above the break three, corner threes. So anywhere around the perimeter, if you have a player that shoots a lot of shots from around there, I think can perform well against this Memphis team. And you have Gary Trent Jr. averaging 5 field goal attempts above the break three per game. In terms of corner threes, he's taking an additional one. So if we get 6+ 3 attempts from Gary Trent Jr., I don't see any reason why he shouldn't drop 2 of them. So I'm going to lean in that direction. I will say -140 right now on FanDuel. This thing is -160 on Caesars, -160 on MGM, -180 on DraftKings. So maybe race to that one if you do like the sound of that Gary Trent Jr., because I don't know if the odds will be there all day long, where we like them on FanDuel. I also don't mind Desmond Bane. He leads the Memphis Grizzlies in field goal attempts from the mid-range. And this is a Bucks team that struggles at the mid-range, but Desmond Bane, we just saw kind of, we loved him when he had, 30 the other night, right? We loved that spot. I don't know if I love this one as much, especially on a back-to-back. So I lean in that direction, but if I had to pick one of the two, I'd probably go with Gary Trent Jr. over him 100%. In fact, I just locked it in, so you can expect to see that in the pinned comment. Gary Trent Jr. over 1.5 threes. I wanted to get that value on FanDuel at -140. I think this thing's going to be like -150, -160 by the end of the day. All right, game number 2, we got the Mavs taking on Houston. Right now, Mavs 6.5-point favorites at home. Total is sitting at 225.5. This is another tough one. I know when there's not that many games, we only have 4 games on the slate. The odds makers have, more resources to go towards these games, because I think some of these spreads are spot on. Like, I think this is a Mavs spot, but I see like a 7-8-point win for the Mavs here. And it's tough because this is a really, I guess you could say, good Houston defense. Now they've played, Charlotte, Memphis, then San Antonio twice. So keep that in mind. Maybe we need to temper some expectations or claims for how good their defense is. But so far, a pretty efficient defense. They're allowing the 3rd fewest points per game to opponents so far this year. So it is a good defense. But I can't necessarily look past that the Mavs have such a star-studded backcourt, and then, obviously Klay Thompson involved as well, that you throw that in, and it's like, well, at any moment, they could torch any defense, right? I don't care if Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr. playing good D. It's like, well, those are not necessarily the prototypical guys that would cover Luka, Kyrie, and Klay. Like, it's a little bit difficult to sit there and say that this defense on Houston should be able to dominate the Mavs. I think any defense in the league would have trouble kind of covering the Mavs. So I lean the Mavs. I think that we saw a pretty good ballsy win against Minnesota. That was in Minnesota, right? They were 4-point dogs. They won the game outright by 6, and they were up, they were down, they were never out of it though, and then they ultimately end up pulling away. I see if them being able to pull away from Minnesota's offense and their defense, I guess, they should be able to do the same thing here against the Rockets. So I'm going to lean towards the Mavs minus the 6 points, but I get it if you're out there being like, that's a lot of points to give a great team like Houston. I get it, and they have a go-off guy in Green. Like, I understand it. It's just not enough for me to get to that Houston side of things, especially with the Mavs here at home. They're 2-0 at home this season. In terms of what we have for a total 225, that is where I do think Houston can kind of slow things down, because this is a Mavs team that's kind of middle of the pack. They're figuring out their pace. They will play fast, but there's plenty of times when they say, hey, let's run some half-court sets. Kyrie likes to dribble. Luka likes to dribble. Yes, when Klay touches the ball, he's a fast-paced type player, but overall, I see this being a low-ish scoring game. Now, everyone and their grandmother's ex-boyfriend was on the under for Minnesota and Dallas, just a couple nights ago, and that ended up ending at, 234? So I could see, and that was the same, there was like 222 or something closing line, right? So I could see something similar. It's like, well, the Mavericks just put up 120. That's tough to go under. But I think that Houston's defense at least contributes a little bit and slows the game down. They're a very slow team, the 6th slowest team so far to start the year. So I'm going to lean under in this one. Now, not necessarily correlating plays here. I do have 3 player props that I'm eyeing as of right now, and they're all over, so that doesn't correlate to an under, but we'll start on the Rocket side of things. For plus 120 odds, I think there's some serious value on Jalen Green over 3.5 3-pointers. So far this year, he's hit it in 3 of the 4 games, and he's literally shooting the ball 12 times from deep. And I don't think this is the phenomenal perimeter defense in Dallas. So far this year, 37.6 above the break threes in terms of allowed, so not necessarily anything that I'm looking at saying, oh, well, that's, scary, right? And they're allowing, in terms of shooting guards, they rank 8th worst in terms of threes allowed. So I think Green gets his opportunities. Let's see if he knocks them down today. Same stat category for Klay Thompson at 2.5. He's hit in 3 of his 4 games. He had 7 attempts, which was lowest so far against Minnesota, and he only shot 29% from 3, which was 2 of 7. He didn't hit it last game out. I do think that he has a better performance. We obviously know he's around a 40, even 35 at worst percent three-point shooter. So if he gets 7 attempts again, and that's been the lowest so far this year, I think that he ends up making 3. And then Luka over 30.5 points. Luka's had kind of what we could say is like a what's going on season. He doesn't look all much like himself now. He's dishing the ball kind of, he just doesn't look all that complete. He's still a phenomenal player, but when the bar is this high and you're not reaching it, it's noticeable. You know what I mean? So it is more or less just because he has such a high bar, but I don't mind his over 29.5 points. I think he can get 30 today. What he's done against Houston in the past, 41, 47, and 37. So this dude scores well against this Houston team. I don't mind Luka to have a decent day today either. As always, guys, keep an eye on the pinned comment to see what we end up rolling with, if anything. Everything we talk about in these videos are spots that I like, and spots that I'm obviously leaning towards and I think are favorable matchups and whatnot. But we spend hours and hours for the rest of the day looking into these plays, kind of confirming them in this dumb brain and whatnot. So that's why the pinned comment's there. If you want to take this information and make your own plays, that's kind of the ideal setup here. But if you want to see what I'm actually rolling with myself and whatnot, all those plays will be for free in the pinned comment. So keep an eye on that. And before we do jump into the rest of the games, the next two, I want to talk to you guys about Underdog. Now, this is a basketball video, I get it, but they have a free CJ Stroud square right now for Thursday Night Football, 0.5 total yards. You get that square if you sign up today with the link in the pinned comment, and you're also going to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when depositing. So go check out that link. It's in the pinned comment as well as the description, whichever is easiest for you. Get that free square, go pair that with something out, and make some money today. You win up to 1,000 times your money over on Underdog, and they're going to give you free cash when signing up. So go ahead and check it out, guys. That link, again, is in the pinned comment. Let's jump back into these games. All right, next up, we got the Jazz taking on the Spurs. Jazz 2.5-point favorites here at home. They have not won a game so far this season. At some point, they're going to win, obviously. Total sitting at 223.5. This is a tough one here. I think that I'm going to lean towards the Spurs. The Spurs are on a back-to-back. They got, actually, it was just kind of a messy game yesterday against the Thunder. They ultimately lose 105-93. They were 12-point favorites, so they did cover, just bare 12.5-point favorites, so they just covered by a half point, so they did get there against a spread win there. But like I said, I'm going to lean towards the Spurs. I think that I would, if these numbers were switched, like if the Jazz were plus 2.5, it may honestly make me lean towards the Jazz, so giving you guys sort of, I guess, a margin there in terms of how confident I am in this. But I think the Spurs team can do a few things on the Jazz that should look pretty damn good, like scoring in the paint. This Jazz team is absolutely terrible in terms of, one, scoring in the paint, but allowing their opponents to score in the paint. So far this year, the third most points in the paint against them in terms of points per game allowed. And then they're also averaging 73%, I think it's 73.1 field goal percentage in the paint against. So, Wemby gets down there, Sohan gets down there. I don't see much of a reason or any rationale to thinking that the Jazz would come out here and stop them, right? And also Lauri Markkanen, who got injured in at halftime or before halftime last game. He's game time decision. He's listed as questionable right now, so that's obviously one of their best offensive pieces. This screams Spurs spot to me, even though they are on a back-to-back. Now, one thing I'll say about them being on a back-to-back is, they're young for the most part. Obviously, Chris Paul is leading the way there, but overall, I don't think that the back-to-back is going to be that big of a deal. Like, Wemby shouldn't be on much of a minutes restriction this year or anything like that, so I'm hoping that's the case, but obviously, if they go out there and some of their guys, they're dead legs and whatnot, this is a Jazz team that likes to run and likes to play fast. They could run away from them. So if you are in the Jazz today, that's probably your angle. Back-to-back, and the Jazz like to play fast, and the Spurs play slow so far this year. But overall, I think there should be enough easy buckets in the paint for the Spurs. They're also the better defensive team by far and away. Like I just mentioned, this Jazz does not have a good defense, and they play quick. So give me the Spurs plus the 2 points. That total is at 223.5. I'd like to think that San Antonio does something a little bit more offensive than they did yesterday with 93 points, but overall, I don't think either one of these offenses is like fully vetted or we know exactly what to expect. So I'm actually going to lean towards the under, but I went into this thinking, okay, 223.5, how do we get to the over? Because the Jazz play so fast, but even though the Jazz play so fast, they're not all that great. Like, they play plenty fast, and they're shooting below 44% in transition this year, which isn't all that great, and actually both teams have a decent transitional defense in terms of field goal percentage against. So it's like, I don't mind this being a slow-ish pace game, even though when you think Spurs and Jazz, you wouldn't necessarily peg it as a basketball fan, right? But give me the under in this spot. Now, there's 3 player props I'm considering. First up, Julian Champagne here, over 1.5 3-pointers made. This Jazz team, they should surrender a lot of buckets at the rim, but they don't cover the perimeter all that well either. And I think that Champagne Not that he's a sharpshooter or anything like that, but the last 2 games here, he shot 17% from 3 and then 25% from 3. I think he's a little bit better than that, and those are the only 2 games that he hasn't hit it this year. He's 2 for 2. He's 2 and 2 to this line, so I like the spot here for him. I also like Victor Wembanyama. His point line is definitely high at 23.5, but like I mentioned, I think he's going to get some really easy buckets to add to his point total today. And then Jeremy Sohan, having a really good year, 16.5 points for plus 100 odds over on MGM right now. This is minus odds on most other books. He has 18, 17, 22, and 17 this year, so he's been covering the line pretty narrowly, but still covering it. And like I mentioned, the Jazz stink at defending the rim, right? Sohan actually leads the team in both field goal attempts in the restricted area and then field goal attempts in the paint, non-restricted area. So I like him to be able to get some easy buckets as well. But what I will say, the one thing that probably might ultimately keep me up off of this one is the fact that 16.5 is definitely very high. Like, this is probably not the best time to buy high on Sohan, I guess I would say. But nonetheless, it's still a spot that I'm considering, especially with that plus number next to the odds at plus 100. All right, last game of today's slate. We're looking at the Clips taking on the Suns. Shout out to my man in the comments yesterday talking about the retro Clippers logo. We have tons of even the Suns logo, right? Like, I guess that's their updated one, but we have tons of logos that I'm using in these videos just because I kind of like the logo. We'll switch them out throughout, up throughout the season, but just wanted to give that shout out. But nonetheless, we got the Clips taking on the Suns. Clips 5-point dogs here at home. Total sitting at 223.5. I've seen a 222.5 out there on MGM, so keep that in mind depending on what side you like. Clippers are coming off of a back-to-back. They lost outright to Portland yesterday. They were 8-point favorites. They just got outplayed in the fourth quarter. They had actually at the end of the half they got outplayed, and then at the end of the game they got outplayed. So 2 tough spots. I think they won the first and third quarter, if I'm not mistaken, but that's just basketball and nerd stuff. But nonetheless, in this spot, I don't really love the idea of the Clippers on a back-to-back. Wouldn't necessarily say they're the youngest and spry team. Zubac, Harden, Powell. So I do think I lean Suns here, but the Suns have not been a good team against the number. 1-3 against the spread this year, but they're 3-1 straight up. So the Suns have been a money line team, not necessarily a spread team, especially laying 5 points on the road. If this thing, I think I've seen a 4.5 out there. So if this thing gets down to 4, maybe we can buy a half bucket or a half, you know what I mean, and get it down to 3.5, something like that. That may be more appetizing to me, but I really can't get to the Clippers so much in this spot. I think that they will ultimately probably be a little bit better, defensively in terms of in the paint and whatnot. But maybe I shouldn't even say better, because the Suns have been pretty good around the hoop so far this year. And this is a Clippers team that struggled on the perimeter. So if the Clippers like to score in the paint or closer to the hoop, I think the Suns can handle it. So I almost want to eat my words and say screw that. I think that the Suns might be the better team in terms of points in the paint. But overall, I think that this is a Sun spot for that reason, and then the fact that I already mentioned that perimeter game. The Suns should dominate the perimeter, and when you have the casting crew that is in this game with Harden, then you have Booker, Beal's questionable, but Beal, Booker, and Durant, like I do think that there's a sizable advantage for Phoenix on the outside. So I'm going to lean Suns minus the points. And then in terms of the total, it's at 223.5. I've seen 220, 2.5 like I mentioned. I think this game goes over. Phoenix has been playing pretty damn efficiently so far to start the year. And, both teams are good defensively, like I mentioned, but there are some gaps. Phoenix on the outside, I think that we could see some easy buckets here from there, and those easy buckets will be worth 3 points, right? So I lean over. Do I like it as much as taking Phoenix on the spread? Not necessarily. I do have a player prop that I like. I think it's going to be a Devin Booker type night tonight, so I like him multiple ways here. Over 2.5 3-pointers made. The only game he hasn't hit that in, he shot 25% from, and that was against Dallas, a decent defensive team, right? I think that the Clippers struggle a little bit more on the perimeter, so I like Booker to make 3 threes tonight. That's minus 115. It's minus 115 on MGM, and then on DraftKings, it's minus 130. Caesars minus 140, so we do have some value over on MGM. I also like his points plus assists at 30.5. Now, he's only hit this once, and that was in nearly 40 minutes of play in his last game against the Lakers, but I think he's going to have plenty of assist opportunities and potential assists, which he's averaging almost 10 per game, so I like him to get 5 assists, which would hit his over. It's 4.5 right now if you want to take that little nugget. But I already mentioned, I think he's going to be really good on the perimeter, and if he can get to the mid-range, sure. This is a Clippers team that covers the mid-range well, so I don't know if I necessarily love that, but that's still one of his scoring profile zones, right? But I think that he makes a few threes and gets well on his way to dropping 25-ish points tonight. So I like his points and assists separately, but I think I'll go points plus assist in general, just because 30, was it 29.5, 30.5, whatever it is, I think that he can get there. So I like Booker in terms of player prop looks here. And guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 19. Appreciate you guys. I know I say that a lot. It gets boring, it gets old, but to me, I'll take every chance I can get on this microphone to tell you guys thank you and truly show appreciation. So hopefully that does not get too old. It is genuine, and it's not just me saying it at the close of videos, but hopefully you guys understand that. But yeah, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment 19 if you made it this far into the video. Get those ride of the days in there. I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.